Good afternoon, folks. Good afternoon. This is Spirit Journey, and today is Thursday, June 18, 2020, and the time right now is 1:53 p.m. I hope you all are doing well. Well, I am doing another video, and it's in response to a video that I uploaded early this morning around 2 a.m. in the morning, and I received some comments, and I want to share with you those comments. And up front, this video that I'm doing is not designed to offend anyone's heritage. You are who you are, good or bad. We all have this vessel here that we live with, and it's genetics, but it's what it's the person's character that defines them. Our vessel is like a car. It's the driver behind the wheel that makes the car. Okay, so regardless of your race, your nationality, we're all really equal. We're different, we look different, but we're people. We all have feelings. And my video that I did early this morning was not designed to offend, but to wake up the Black community that I'm a member of, to wake us up to loving ourselves, not loving an image that Hollywood created for a particular ethnic group, the Native American Indian. And so many of us in the Black community want to embrace a false narrative to the point that some Black people from the United States of America are denying that slavery occurred. Well, I should say more specific, that the transatlantic slave trade never happened. And so it kind of flipped me out a little bit, because I've shared information regarding it and opposition. And why are we in such opposition? So I had found something, a video yesterday, and so I wanted to share it. I wasn't looking for it, but I said, wow, I thought it was pretty good. So again, I felt that it was important to, preface that this video is not to insult someone who does have Native American bloodline or culture. You are who you are, and that's okay. So if you're an Indian, that is beautiful. If you're a Black/African person, you're beautiful. If you're white/European, you are beautiful. You are who you are. If you're, let's say, Asian, you are beautiful. You are who you are. Okay, so so it's not about being hateful, but I'm tapping onto my history to embrace my heritage. I'm looking on the screen here because something shifted on the. I've been having technical problems. Okay, I've been having technical problems with my computer. It needs cleaning out. Okay, it has too much data. But either way, my whole journey was one of deprecation. I was deprecated growing up and feeling so much fear and intimidation and extreme dislike for myself, solely because of how I was treated by others, how I was treated by employers, white people in the military, on the job, a lot of injustices. And I always thought, well, maybe I just have to assimilate more, assimilate more, assimilate more. No, it has nothing to do with assimilation. True that the more you have in common with someone helps kind of bridge a little bit, but it's not about that. It's about the history of the colonial powers who control the Americas. And black folk is just a reminder how they got to the power that they are today. And so they want to take it out on us, so they have these police force that, heard. Oh, that's also what I want to talk about too, but I don't think I'll do in this video. But yeah, it has its history, and they're doing what they're doing. So by doing the videos about Native American Indians and the black people of North America in particular, it's not about trying to take away what your history or your love, because maybe some of you do have Native American Indian, some do, but most don't. In some location in the Americas, like the Spanish colonies, the Spaniards didn't bring their white wives. They acquired women from Africa and those women who were in the Americas at the time when they came. And so you'll see in those societies in the Americas that there's a blending and a mixing of a lot of people, So their history is their history. It had heavy slavery. It had slavery the longest out of all the Americas, what we call Latin America, in particular the Spanish-speaking groups and the Portuguese-speaking groups. And it also seems like those that were Catholic, like French, some of the French colonies, French in general practiced Catholicism. So you find a lot of mixing also in Catholic, in French islands as well. But less mixing with the English and Dutch colonies. Okay, so all these things that I've been through hurt me, and as time went on, I started, I was meeting different people, and people wanted me to know about our black history, and so it was a long process, a very long process, that I can now say, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay with my hair. I'm getting gray hair, but it's all mine. It's all mine. I've even tried a weave once. I had a friend that had a weave in the mid-1980s, and I thought, wow, that looked fun to have. I wanted to have long hair, but it didn't work for me. I started to get bald spots where the weave was attached. Yeah. And when I saw it, I only had the weave in for 2 weeks. When it itches, and then the bald spots, I had it taken out as fast as I could. And I think that was one of many lessons that I learned to appreciate my own body. Try not trying to look like your oppressors. Embrace the you. So if you have naturally curly or kinky or bushy hair, embrace it. Embrace it. I embrace my coloring. I love my color. My skin color and my hair color is not what defines me. What defines me is my character. Do I have good character? Okay. So with all that being said, I want to I want to talk about, show you, well, again, I want to talk about the video that I uploaded. I'm just going to show you, like here on the screen here. It's the title, "You Are Not an Indian, but an African," and it features this woman here. Her name is She goes by the name Aunt Sally Smith, also known as Vidoshi or Vidashi. And her hometown is Benin, Africa. She has a nationality. She might be part of a tribe, but this is her, and yet she got high cheekbones. You know, Indians aren't the only people that have high cheekbones. But yeah, they would say grandma, and she had high cheekbones. But no, she's not an Indian. She's an African woman, okay? And she survived. So yes, I did my video with her, about her, okay? And the author, well, the person who uploaded this video, I found another video of him. And so, oh no, my mistake. Okay, my mistake. There was someone else who uploaded a video, and I wanted to, I showed a little bit of that video in this video that I did yesterday. And I only showed a part of it. And after getting, after I had gotten this comment from the video I uploaded early this morning, I said, I'm going to show the whole video of this this man. I thought it was powerful. And even after I, completed the video and then I finished looking at the other video, I said, well, I should have added that information in it. So I'm gonna show it, because see, it's about educating yourself. So okay, so I have this video here that I entitled "You Are Not an Indian but an African." Someone got offended, and I want to share with you their comment. Okay, this is their comment. Okay, it's by Truth Seeker here, Truth Seeker, and it was sent about 7 hours ago, a little more now, because I didn't refresh the page, and I don't want to refresh the page and something happened, Okay, yeah. So Truth Seeker says, and wait, where it go? Okay, and I'm unsubscribing as well, as we all should be. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I thought it was something else. Wait a minute. Okay, maybe that was okay. And I'm unsubscribing as well, as we all should, because of this ignorance. Okay, so here I did a video sharing the history of this woman, of Auntie Sally. Okay, this person, Truth Seeker, seems to be offended that I gave honor to an ancestor who went through these traumas, and this person didn't have enough sensitivity. And I just shared the video and my comments, okay? And so they felt it important enough to tell me that they're unsubscribing. Oh, boo-hoo. Like I really care. See, I didn't start YouTube to be a millionaire. I subscribed to YouTube some time ago. And back then, I didn't know anything about what they called monetization. I just found that it gave me an outlet to share my feelings, because I had a lot of built-up feelings. I was a very withdrawn and shy person, and I said, wow, I could, upload stuff, and the computer I had was not a good computer, so the quality of my videos were lacking. But I put it up anyway, because it gave me a voice. And so I couldn't care less for you to say that you're unsubscribing because of this ignorance. What was ignorant? See, my videos oftentimes triggers other people, their own insecurities, and how they want to believe this Pocahontas type narrative that they're something that they're not. And they're teaching over some people are teaching over YouTube that slavery didn't exist in America, that there was no transatlantic slave trade. So I'm going to show you sometime later on in this video that yes, my black ancestors on my mom's side were slaves, okay, and they got their freedom. So I'm going to share that. Then, so I wrote down, this is what this was the response I gave the person. I said, yes, get off my channel. You are a foolish member of my race and ancestors' struggles. You are weak. You are weak wannabe. Power to the black race of love and truth. I survive, we survive. Sorry for the grammar there. I was just writing, get my thoughts out. And then they respond to my comment and said, Spirit Journey, you are very stupid, very ignorant and uneducated. Glad to leave. Goodbye. Okay? Now, I'm not sure if I've ever seen them before on my channel. And when I wrote the comment, I was very angry. And I said what you see that I shared. But I want to say this to other black people who feel the same way as Truth Seeker. If you saw my video, you're always welcome back to my channel. Yes, I said, you know, unsubscribe, get lost. And at the time, I felt I meant it, you know. And I'll say up front that if anyone is that offended because I feature a black woman, she was a girl when she was kidnapped. Here you don't even value a young black girl. See that? You're real prejudiced against yourself. Okay? So I said, you know, you gotta honor those people who lived honorable lives. The person went through a trauma. Could you imagine if someone kidnapped you? Truth Seeker. If someone kidnapped, let's say you have a child, and someone kidnapped your child, and you never got them back, wouldn't the pain be in you? Don't you think that girl wanted to get back home? So you have to give honor with honor due. You don't have to agree. But I show the proof. You don't think the girl knows where she's from? She spoke the language. She spoke the language of Benin. That's what her language was. She was about 12 years old when she was captured and chained and brought here to the Americas, to Alabama. Yes. But you call me ignorant for sharing history with you. Okay? So, yes, I know there's a lot of people that watch my channel and may think the same way as Truth Seeker. I say up front, I say, please, I invite you all to leave my channel if you really don't like the content. And if a poor old black woman offends you, get the fuck off my channel. Yeah, I don't need the subscriptions, because see, I didn't start out being a money grubber. I didn't start this channel at all to be loved and to get money from this channel. I have very few subscribers. I make very little money. I didn't start out with the monetization. I started the monetization, I think it was 2017. Yeah, 2017 in April. Yeah. Please, I invite you to leave. You know, money is not power. See, the mouth is real power. The mouth is what's power. See, even after you spend your dollars and you don't have any money left, you have your mouth and the impact it gives to the listener, the person who hears what you're saying. It can last a lifetime. Money fades. but my words and the thought behind my words live forever. Yeah, I'm not doing this for money. Would I like money? Yes. It's not you could help pay the bills and everything. And those of you who are listening and feel for what I'm saying, I invite you to subscribe to my channel and to ring that bell if you want to. If you don't, that's okay too, because I'm doing this for me and I'm doing it for us to educate, to be enlightened. And if you have information to prove that there was no such thing as a transatlantic slave trade, please provide it in the description below when I upload this. Yeah, educate me. But if it's just about hearsay and and you can't prove it, there's no DNA. I had my DNA done, and I'm a typical Caribbean mix of African and European, just typical. Okay, there's no Indian. Okay, but if you're Indian, that's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, so because of these comments, I decided to share the video by this man. Yeah, his name is James Mayfield. He's a researcher, and it's this one. I want to play this one. I want to play, I think, most of it, if not all of it. It's 17 minutes and 21 seconds. Let me press on it. Okay, so I'll probably be, commenting as we go. And I do this for us. Again, this is not my video. I am... Okay, let me get the person who did this. Let me lift it up. Oops. Uh-oh. It moves. Let's see what happened to the rest. Oh, okay, it came out. Okay, that's okay. So I can always remove it. Okay, let me play it again. Okay, so it's by James Mayfield.
So, over the last 2 semesters, most of my lectures have focused on the experience of Native American loss of homeland and victimization by the U.S. government. But this week, I'd like to balance it out by focusing a little bit on some of the less pleasant aspects of Native American heritage, and a very controversial issue in reservation politics today. And that's the history of Native American involvement in slavery, not only of other Native American tribes, but of African Americans as well. Today we'll be watching a documentary on the Black Indians, which is an obscure but very important topic in Native American history. It's a source of ongoing controversy because recently the Cherokee and other slave-owning tribes of the past recently decided to strip black people of citizenship.
Okay, did you just hear that? That those 5 civilized tribes that you like to glamorize disenfranchise you, that you can't be a member. Yes, you had black people who were associated with tribes, but he's going to explain a lot of the stuff. And yes, he's a Caucasian/white person, but doesn't make what he's saying not true. Okay, but history is history. So I'm going to begin, and some of the things you may not like, but again, he's not here to win a contest of likability, okay? But to just hear some of the documentation that he discovered, okay? Here I go again.
As the descendant of slaves of Cherokee Nation, Choctaw Nation, Seminole Nation, they no longer have citizenship. It's an important issue because critics accuse the Native Americans of racism, but for the Native Americans, it comes down to an issue of tribal sovereignty. Same thing they've been fighting for 200 plus years, is that we have an inalienable right to have our own policies on our own sovereign nations. But to start, I think it's important not to reduce slavery to stereotypes. We tend to, almost by default, think that slavery is a white institution of capturing black people. But in truth, history shows us that slavery is a basic economic system of every society in history, bar none. It's a basic way of organizing labor. And we have to consider that before Europeans, Arabs, blacks, and Turks had massive slave networks in Africa where they bought African people from African tribes. So, my point in saying so is Simply acknowledging Native American participation in slavery doesn't isolate them as any guilty party. But still, we can't accept stereotypes. We can't accept the stereotype of Native Americans running around in loincloths and scalping people and taking slaves.
Okay, also with regard to that, Indians scalping people, the scalping practices was initiated by the French. Just an FYI, it's not something that they devised. They were copying the practices of the Europeans that they were dealing with. Okay.
But at the same time, we can't just accept the stereotype that Native Americans were docile and peaceful and one with nature and promoting human equality.
And yes, that's the image that I was getting regarding Native American history, that they're all about spirituality. Okay, and that's the propaganda that I was being taught. Okay, but all different types of Indians.
In truth, Native Americans had the same economic needs as any other society, and the same basic human functions of warfare. So they used the same institution of slavery in order to be competitive and dominant over other tribes. So I'd like to give you some examples of Native American involvement in slavery. First and foremost, most famous is the horseback tribes of the American Southwest, like the Shoshone, Apache, Comanche, and Navajo. They would constantly go out and raid villages and capture slaves after battles for the purpose of forced labor. On the other side of the continent in Canada, the Cree tribes, also in New York, that area, the Great Lakes, they would often raid villages for the sole purpose of capturing slaves that they would put on the slave market with Europeans. They bought guns from the French in exchange for fur,
So the
so
French?
they just made it more easy for the Cree to go into villages and capture slaves. In Oregon and Washington, among the Klamath Nation, it was a massively wealthy tribe that had a very staunch socioeconomic hierarchy, and you could even argue a caste system. Slavery was rampant. As many as a fourth of the population of the Klamath Nations consisted of slaves. It was such a common institution that it was considered basic family practice that when two people got married, the families would sell slaves to each other as part of dowry. Among other tribes, like small bands in California, especially Northern California, some tribes even had hereditary slavery, where the son of a slave was born a slave. That was more strict than many parts of the United States.
I also have to say this. Just because he's using the term slave does not equate a black person or an African. Okay, because in California, way back then, they didn't have slaves in California. They didn't have it there. Blacks weren't even allowed there. Okay, so he could be referring to other Indian tribes that were enslaved. Okay.
Lastly, among the Aztec, the Maya, the Pueblo, and even the mound-building tribes of Mississippi, we looked at last semester, they would often participate in capturing slaves for the purpose of sacrifice, human sacrifice, in order to appease their war gods to ensure a good harvest. Because again, war gods, meaning they have to be dominant and competitive with other tribes. But the most famous Native American tribes involved in the slave trade in American history are the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, the Seminole, and the Muskogee Creek. Interestingly, these are the 5 tribes that George Washington considered the only tribes worthy of being called the 5 civilized tribes. Washington and the Founding Fathers admired these tribes as if they had the potential for civilization. They had the seeds of democratic governance, so they could eventually be paved towards citizenship. The U.S. government had the same attitude towards the Iroquois Confederacy. They had a very strong oral constitution that the Founding Fathers looked upon as like the genesis of American democracy that they were inspired by. The Iroquois would constantly raid villages in the Great Lakes area for capturing slaves. But the fact that all these tribes participated in the slave trade didn't diminish their civilization or their humanity to the Founding Fathers. Instead, it was these tribes that the U.S. government gave special privileges as part of America's civilization policy. It would give them extra incentives and allow these tribes the quickest path towards American citizenship. In fact, it was the Cherokee, who were one of the most prominent slave-owning tribes, that were the first nation that got almost universal American citizenship. Most Native Americans had to wait until 1924 to get citizenship.
Wow.
Cherokee had it already by the time of the Trail of Tears, and they were forced out. But again, the Cherokee were one of the most rampant slave-owning populations on the continent. By the time of the Indian Removal Act in 1830, shortly before the Trail of Tears, there may have been as many as 5,000 slaves out of a total population of 15,000. By percentage, that's worse than white America, even in the Deep South. But still, to be fair, we have to understand that just like in white America, very few Cherokees actually owned slaves. Slaves were very expensive, very difficult to police them and feed them. So about 10% of the Cherokee population owned almost the entire slave population. Same was the case for white America. Even in the Deep South, very few people actually owned slaves.
He's thirsty.
But on the other side, we have to be fair. There are many cases where African Americans would voluntarily flee onto Indian reservations for protection. Often, Africans would feel that they would get better treatment if they went to Native American reservations because there's less hostility towards minorities. There's less racism, or so they hoped. Most famous case is a man named Billy Bowlegs III of the Seminole Nation. He was a black Indian who descended from the very famous chief Billy Bowlegs, who was a hero of the Seminole Nation who fought the U.S. government in 2 Seminole Wars. They resisted valiantly, but eventually the entire Seminole population was forced all the way to Oklahoma, much like the other 5 civilized tribes after the Trail of Tears. But in truth, we have to imagine that this image of Seminole black fusion and multiculturalism is quite romanticized. Native Americans often celebrate this as a case that they were a tolerant society while America was still enslaving black people. It's not really the case. The main reason why blacks were so easily able to settle in Seminole country was because it was much more difficult for the Seminole to police their borders. It was often the case that these reservations had massive boundaries and very small populations, so it was much easier for black slaves to escape, settle onto the reservations, settle up country in the remote hills and woods, and it was less likely to become a case of public conflict as it would in white America or in urban society.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have cases of blacks intermingling and integrating into Seminole country and Native American societies, but in general this proud image of multicultural fusion is very romanticized. It's also not so romantic for the Cherokee. After the Cherokee passed their own constitution as part of America's civilization and acculturation policy, in other words, the Cherokee wanted to create a constitution so that they could integrate into the United States. After they passed that constitution, the Cherokee were unique on the continent because no blacks of any kind could have any power to vote or have any political influence in the Cherokee Nation, at least officially.
Okay, you hear that? But you have a lot of blacks that want to romanticize about the Indian, yet these Indians don't want you. Okay? You know, why don't you just romanticize that which you do know, like that black woman? She's well documented. She survived a voyage as a 12-year-old. When the first Anglo-Saxons entered North America, I think that was around 1617, they virtually all perished, and they were all white men, and they virtually all perished in less than a year. So isn't that something that you could romanticize, the story of those men, women, and children who crossed the Atlantic and survived, yet their white male counterpart all perished? That's something you could write stories about, teach us children about. That it's so documented. And I'm going to show you other documentation. See, Europeans love documentation because they like history, meaning like they like to have things documented so they could refer to it at a later time and learn from those things that happened in the past. You need to do the same. Okay, so I'm going to proceed.
Not even mixed couples could vote or have any political office. This was not the case in the United States, where freed black people owned thousands of slaves in many cases. In Cherokee country, no blacks of any kind had any political influence, on paper at least. So eventually, By the time of the Civil War, the Cherokee, much like the other 4 civilized tribes, allied with the Confederacy against the Union. Why?
Oh, wow.
Now we know that the Civil War was not really about a moral issue of defending slavery. It really came down to economics. The North was trying to basically dismantle the way of life of the Southern economy. Same was the case for the Native Americans and the 5 civilized tribes.
Okay, just want to pause for a moment. So you hear that, black folk? That the 5 so-called civilized Indian tribes of the South were in favor of the Confederacy / the Confederate flag that you want to burn down, and those Confederate generals that you want statues pulled down. Just recently, okay, this is June 18, 2020, okay, but yet you have these Indians who are in favor of the Confederacy / slavery. But you know, you're all such Indian lovers, you know.
They depended upon the institution of slavery for their economy to function. So, of course, with the Confederacy, they were anxious to fight the United States, or the Union at least. But by the end of the Civil War, much like for the rest of the South, Abraham Lincoln banned slavery for the Native Americans as well. Even though the Cherokee were their own sovereign nation with their own policies, the U.S. government banned slavery on their reservations and freed their slaves for them. They also expected the Cherokee to give African Americans citizenship in their own sovereign nations. But while discrimination continued, can I hold the questions for the end? No problem. While discrimination continued, this allowed some African Americans to integrate into Native American society, because they were able to vote now, they were able to own businesses, so you did have some integration. So you do have segments of these 5 civilized tribes, the Seminole, the Cherokee, and the Creek, who are called freedmen. They're basically racially black, sometimes mixed, but in general they're racially, biologically black, but they adopt Native American culture and they consider themselves Cherokee.
Okay, you heard that? So sometimes you see people, they want to show you pictures of relatives, and they're in Indian garb, right? It's always the women that do that. You know, somehow they're able to get their hair long, these long, thick braids. I don't know whether it's a wig or whatever, but how come now you can't grow your hair that long? I don't know. I just don't understand it. But see, the thing is that you wanted to be associated with these groups, but not that you were really a part of that group. But you lived on the reservation because some of you may have escaped slavery from white people. And as you see that they were a little bit slightly more tolerant, the Indian, and so they didn't readily re-enslaved you.
Seminole. This is a very difficult issue for Native American society because constantly in Native American culture they cast out their own members and even sometimes their own tribal elders as if they're fakes or whites. In many cases on reservations you have the tribal elders or the chiefs are only a quarter Native American because of frequent mixing. So Native Americans are often casting out people that they don't really qualify. They're not one of us. It's even easier for blacks because they can say, you can't possibly be Native American. You're black. So it's creating a lot of hostility among these freedmen in these tribal reservations. So eventually, in the 1980s, the Cherokee decided that no blacks could have citizenship in the Cherokee Nation.
What was that? What was that? No blacks in the 1980s were allowed citizenship. You gotta hear that. Let me see if I can replay it again, that little part.
So, eventually, in the 1980s, the Cherokee decided that no blacks could have citizenship in the Cherokee Nation, now that they're their own sovereign territory. What happened was, the Cherokee decided that in order to qualify for citizenship, you needed to prove Native American genetics according to the Dawes Roll of the 1880s. What happened was...
See, I don't know what the Dawes Roll is. Let me see if I can find that. I want to do something here. Let me see. I'm not trying to spell it. Oh, doors. Okay, how do you get on Native American roles? Okay, let's see. I'm just curious. Okay, Dawes Final Roles, OHS Research Center. Let's just see what that is. Oops. Sorry, I had a problem with my computer. Move it over. Okay. Okay, about the Dawes roles. Census cards list the enrollee's name, age, sex, blood quantum, tribe, place of residence, and roll number. In general, the age shown on the census card is the age of the individual around 1902. Members of the same household are typically listed on the same card. Those listed as newborns and minors were born after enrollment began in 1898 but before March of 1907 and are listed on separate cards. Census cards may also reference earlier rolls. Okay, tribal association are listed as by blood, intermarriage, or freemen. Freemen are the former slaves of the 5 tribes and their descendants. Intermarriage means the person was married to a citizen of the tribe. You may also see IW for intermarried white or A for adopted. Okay, let me go further down. This is interesting. Mississippi Choctaws include individuals who did not remove to Indian Territory with the rest of their tribe. Mississippi Choctaws who were deemed eligible for the roll were listed as identified. Okay, so it seems to be some type of registry. Okay, these are some of the locations where they lived. Okay, let me go back a little bit. Let me see what's there. How do I find? Let's see. When was okay? Let me see. When was it taken? Let me just see what this says. Okay, 1893. Information on the Dawes rolls. The Dawes Commission was organized in 1893 to accept applications for tribal enrollment between 1899 and 1907 from American Indians and the 5 civilized tribes who resided in the Indian Territory, which later became the eastern portion of Oklahoma, etc. Okay, so it's like an enrollment. Oops. Okay, where to go now? Okay, let me continue on. I apologize for that. But see, this is new for me also. Okay, so let me just continue playing.
Around the 1880s, the reservations would work with the U.S. government in determining who had Native American ancestry. In that way, today, you can qualify, you can apply for citizenship if you can prove genetics based upon the Dawes rule. But since the Cherokee decided that blacks did not qualify, since they did not have Native American genetics, 25,000 members of the Cherokee Nation lost their citizenship overnight.
Wow, 25,000.
Same was the case for the Seminole. In 1990s, the black Seminoles, or the freedmen, sued the Seminole Nation for the tune of $46 million, asking for their citizenship back.
See that? See, why don't the black population talk about this? Well, you want to talk about some mythological type person, this romanticized imagery of this blending of the Native American and the African. And now you've been suggesting you never were brought here as slave, and somehow you here on the land and this kumbaya with the Native American Indian. This is recent, 1990s, that's recent. Why isn't it discussed? That they rejected you. See, you're lying. See, you lie to your children. And you want them to believe made-up stories rather than the story of, let me show you, of this woman here who deserves honor, but you dishonor her by saying, I'm going to unsubscribe to your channel. Shame on you. Where's it go now? Wait, I'm trying to look for it. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, I apologize. Good. Keep on going back and forth. Okay, I'm going to continue.
The U.S. Supreme Court said, okay, but we need to hear the defense of the Seminole Nation. They're a sovereign territory. We need to hear their perspective in order for us to prosecute outside of our territorial jurisdiction. But since the Seminole did not accept blacks as citizens, they refused to come to the table, and therefore the Supreme Court struck it down because the sovereign perspective of this sovereign nation was not involved.
And something tells me that those blacks who are listening to this video that I'm doing, you're going to say, well, those weren't the real Indians. Those are the $5 Indians. Well, let's say that they are the $5 Indians. You want to be a member of the $5 Indian tribe so that you can get money from the government / welfare. That's what it's all about. Membership so you can get money, free money, and sit on your ass.
So blacks still do not have citizenship in the Seminole Nation. Then things got really controversial in 2006, when the Cherokee were eventually pressured by the U.S. government, by interest groups, by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, to reinstate black citizenship in the name of human rights and civil rights. They argued that if Native Americans restrict their citizenship based upon race, that's the same thing as apartheid, basically, or the Nuremberg laws before Nazi Germany was totally established. The Cherokee eventually relented, and they decided to give black citizenship after 2006. But then again, things got more complicated, and in 2007, there was a special referendum where the Cherokee again decided to strip blacks of their citizenship.
You don't learn. You don't learn, black people, and yet you hide this from your children, and you go to those Indian powwows looking foolish. They rejected you. They don't want you there, but you want people to believe you're always there. No, you probably ran away from slavery, and that was the safest place that you could go to, and you want to be associated with them, but associated now. See, all this happened, what was that, in the early 1900s, and there was money involved. You just say, yeah, I'm associate, and get a free check. No. Start loving yourself. See, people don't like you because you don't like yourself. We all have what we have, we are who we are. But you'll start to get more respect when you really start loving yourself. You say, I am what I am, but I love myself anyhow. So that would get you farther. Yeah, he's drinking his water. He's nervous.
Cherokee offered many excuses to justify their decision to strip blacks of citizenship. First one being, this is an intrusion by white society into our sovereign affairs. You can't import or export your value system onto these sovereign Native American nations. We don't have the same multicultural values that you do. We're our own sovereign culture. Second reason being, Cherokee often accused blacks of trying to fake being Native American so that they could get welfare. Many Native American tribes do not have to work. They get welfare ad infinitum.
See that? See that? It's about money.
Unlike African Americans, for example. So they were accused of masquerading as Native Americans. And there's caricatures of stereotypically looking black people in headdresses. So basically, it's a fake. It's an attempt to get money out of the system.
And I saw someone with that at a party last year. He was an older man in his 70s, and he has his phone, so with the smartphone, and he wants people, he made it so that everybody sees the window, the backdrop on this phone of this black lady wearing a traditional like the outfits from like the Midwest with the leather long skirt and and the long braids. I said to myself, man, how phony. If your mother's on that, really a member of that tribe, why would you even join the military?
In 2011, the act that stripped blacks of citizenship was upheld in Cherokee Supreme Court. They're sovereign nations. They have their own sovereign policies, right? And then, in 2011, the U.S. government threatened to seize all welfare and all subsidy to the Cherokee Nation. Because again, this is against human rights. These are American fundamental principles that you have to uphold if we're going to give you all this subsidy. So, with the threat of bankruptcy, the Cherokee Nation held a special election for their current principal chief, and blacks were allowed to vote for this election. And they eventually ended up electing the current principal chief, Bill John Baker. Blacks could vote, but they weren't citizens.
There you
Still
go.
do not have citizenship.
See?
But now, several congressmen, including in California, the ACLU, other civil rights groups, and the Bureau of Indian Affairs, are even threatening to sever federal recognition of the Cherokee Nation as a whole. In other words, the Cherokee Nation would literally dissolve if this happens.
So why not? Why, if it's about principle, and you don't want someone who's not a member to get benefits, but see they're gonna give in because they're gonna lose their nation because it's about money, money.
But for the Cherokee, it's as always a very sensitive issue of tribal sovereignty. Cherokee argue, if the U.S. government terminates our reservation yet again, it would be no different than what Andrew Jackson did during the Trail of Tears. It's the U.S. government coming into our lands and doing whatever they please with us based upon their interests. Be no different than the termination policies of the 1950s when the reservations were terminated in the interest of Native Americans. Consider that the Cherokee Nation has been terminated multiple times. Shortly before the Indian Removal Act, the ancient homeland of the Cherokee Nation in Georgia was quite literally terminated. A new one was established in Oklahoma, to which they were force-marched during the Trail of Tears. That reservation, too, was terminated after the Dawes Act was imposed. It was terminated again when Oklahoma became a state, until it was eventually reestablished in its current form. So you can see the scars of 5 centuries of mistrust and broken treaties. They've made Native Americans of all colors paranoid over how they relate with the U.S. government. They're paranoid that the U.S. government always has some kind of surreptitious motive in mind whenever they relate to the Native American population, because that's been their experience for 500 years, or 300 years. So, while the Cherokee are not alone in combating these issues of racism, it's important to acknowledge the darker sides of Native American history. And we can't freely accept these stereotypes on either side. Native Americans were not brutal savages. They were also not peaceful individuals who loved equality of man. Every society has to compete over their own interests. And that's where we are today.
Okay. Yeah, that's about it. So, I know it's not gonna, it's a hard pill to swallow, and it is what it is. But you keep going back for more, and you fail to teach your children, black people, that you were rejected several times by the Cherokee and all these other Indian groups. You're just a wandering person on this land. You need your own land, your own history, your own, ability to thrive and to self-govern. Okay, let me show you other stuff now. Okay. Okay, I wanted to, where's that? What was that now? Okay, I show you the video. And yeah, this was just information about the woman who was, Rhodeshi, okay? She lived 72 years after slavery. Okay. So I just wanted to show you that yeah, because I was looking up to see how old she was. Okay, let me just see this. Let's see. The last known survivor of the Clotilda, that's the name of the ship, the slave ship, was, I don't even know how to pronounce that, a man captured at age 19 in West Africa who lived until 1930. Oh, okay, as Cujo Lewis. That's the name that I know him as. Both he and Rhodeshi were among the more than 100 African children, teenagers, and young adults who arrived in Alabama on the illegal slave ship in 1860, 1 year before the Civil War. Isn't that something? So they weren't slaves long, but they were captives. And no reparations. Okay, no reparations were given them. You have a right for reparations. Okay, it's over 100. And again, they got young people because the land there in Alabama, it's brutal. I understand the summers are so hot in the South. They needed young people to be able to work that land. Okay. So I want to show you something else. Let me see. See this here? This is like my background is from the Caribbean. And this database here, this database is a very big database, and it's about the slave records. And it's free to look at. It's all microfished. Okay, and I don't really read French that well, and it's in script, but these are just the registry of the people who lived on the island of Martinique. Okay, so I just want to show you what it looks like. You may have scholars out there, and this is called, let's see, ANOM, okay, National Archives, and it's from France here. Okay, so you could just type it in your computer and get this website. Okay, and why it's on this page here, Le Carbet, that's a town, and that's the town that my mother's people were sent to. Okay, so they have so I think also why I'm showing this is that, see, slavery to the Americans, in the Americas, was not something that was hidden. It was something that was done up front. Everything was documented meticulously for whatever reason, but it needed to be documented. Also, you needed to know who was the slave and who was the European. So you have to know. So families were registered, everything. See all this stuff? They took meticulous records. See that? All this, all done by hand. See that? And you could do your research about it, okay? And then let me show you something else. This is another database. So those of you who are French Caribbean or Francophone Caribbean world, that your ancestry could be found in these databases. Found your slave ancestors, and I found mine. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see. I don't know how I was able to. It's been a very long while since I've been on this thing here. Let me see. Doing a search. Let me try that. Okay, I'm going to write in the surname. Yeah, I don't remember how I did this. Henri Bon. Oh, what's his name? Oh, I know what I can do. Okay, I have a, where's that paper? I had a form. I might have put it back. Let me see if I can find it. I think I put it back in the folder. Where did I put it? Oh, there it goes. I found it was right there. Oops. Okay. Okay, I have some of the document. I had printed it out. Let me see if I can find this one. E14. Okay, 1848, 1849. Let me see if I can find that one. That's, boy. Delphine. Mayfield. Okay, I'm going to type in the name. Yeah, see, this document that I have in my hand are the papers for freedom. Mayfield, let's see. M-I-P-H-A-N-E Delphine. Oh, I spelled it wrong. It was a typo. Let me go back. Boy, Delphine. Oh, where'd it go? M-I-P-H-A. Yeah, it's been many years since I've been on this database. I don't remember how I navigated on it. Okay, let me just see if I could scroll down. Let me see. Let's see, let me move up, move it over. Okay. These are all the names of, okay. Boy, it is something. I really want to find it. I really want to find it for you. See, if you don't see it, let's see, manuscripts. Maybe there's a home page. Let me see. Research. Let me do it again. Yeah, it's something remarkable. Okay. How did I do this? How did I do it before? Oh, brother. Let's see. Search. Services. Let's see. actual archives. Let me see. Okay. I have to find this for you. It's the close. I'll get it. I'll get it. Bear with me. Let me just press on that again. Search in all. Let's see, what is this? Type date. Let me see that. E14. So I'm not sure what that is. Why? Yeah, you start to lose practice after a while. What is that? Let's see. Yeah, this is Le Corbeil. No, that's not going to help out. I'll go back there. Delphine. Let me put in Delphine Bon. Delphine Bon. Okay. Okay. This, okay, they might have changed it a little bit. Okay, this is my ancestor. Okay. Her name was Delphine. And this is the last name she was given. Okay, this is when she was born. Martinique, it's a part of France. And she resided in the town of Corbeil. Her parents were given the name Bon. Okay. The legitimacy. Okay, this is her father's name, Ismin, and then Bon was the name given him. Okay, let me see. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to press on this. Oh, and okay. She had married, get this, okay, in June 30, 1857, she married this man, Henry Matthew Corcoran, in Corbeil, the town of Corbeil. Okay, he may have, okay, yeah, they married, okay, they married in 1900, my mistake. September 20, 1900, this man married my ancestor, Mayfield, and the last name she was given, let's see. Yeah, Mayfield is the last name she was given. It's a slave last name. It's her first name. And then when her parent, her father, got a last name. Yeah, the father, her biological father, married the biological mother. And once they legitimized their union, yeah, okay. Okay, see there? Agatha Mayfield. Okay, that was the mother of my descendant. She and him, Ismin Bon, married in 1857, and only then did she, Delphine, get her father's last name. Okay, and then when she married Corcoran here in 1900, she then gets his last name. Let me see if I can find that paper. Okay, these are the sources. Let's click on it. Okay, let's see. Let me click on this. Yeah, you see, she was a slave. Oh, it's blocked. Okay, it's probably my... Sorry about that. Okay, so my software isn't updated enough, but I have a copy of it. See, what I learned from this experience is when you get access to something, make a copy, because sometimes software changes and your computer can no longer access it. So make a copy. Okay. Okay, let me show you that. Okay, this is the document. So here you would see, and you could put it on, let me see, okay, closer. Okay, this in script. And a lot of you guys here in the United States, you don't learn script anymore. But this is the actual document. This is my ancestor, my slave ancestor, okay? She was born into slavery, and then she had gotten her so-called liberation, and the family had to register. They registered in Carbe, the town that there was slaves, and they were issued so-called citizenship and issued a last name. That was the last name they were issued, and they became French citizens. Okay, and then here, okay, so this was the initial document, and anytime in this person's future, anytime there was a change, such as when her parents, her biological parents, married, this name that she was given, last name she was given, she now is able to get her father's last name. See, names are very important, last names, and legitimacy. Slaves weren't allowed to marry. So yes, they had children, but the children did not receive, they did not get the last name from the father. Only when the parents married did the girl get her father's last name as Bon, B-O-N. And then any addition, they write it on the side. And this information here is about, what was that now? Boy. So I think there are two documentations. One about her father marrying the mother, and the other, yeah, I think there's two incidences. The other one is regarding, yes, her future husband. Get this, okay? And then this is the documentation, okay? What happened was, see, here she was a slave girl. She was 14 years old when she got her freedom from slavery. Slavery entered in Martinique in the 1840s, 1848, I think it was, 1848. While in the U.S. it's 1865, I think it was. But either way, the year slavery ended was the year she had her first baby. The baby was born under free terms, so-called free terms, and 50 years, she had 10 children with this man, and this man was a slaver. But in French, they use the word, what's that word? They use a fancy term. They don't say he's a slave owner. They say he's a business person. It's a name that means business. Let's see if I can find that. Oh, this is a blow-up of what was written on the side of that document. So those of you who know how to read script and know how to read French, Okay, that's the actual document. Okay, it's a registry. So there's something on top. That's probably with her, about her father. And then this bottom part here is when she married. Yeah, the French, European, Western Europeans were very, very particular about documentation. Everything was documented. Who you belong to, who you married, when did you, all that. See, there's valuable information about your history, but instead you want to make up a false history that does not really empower you. It doesn't. It doesn't empower you. Yeah, let me see anything else. Since I have it here. Yeah, this is the grandmother. Okay. She and her children, it's registered, the children she had, they had to go to the town hall, and register for citizenship. Slavery just ended, and then they had to go to get their citizenship papers, to get it registered. And they were issued last names. Okay? Yeah. So my ancestor, who was a slave, she got her freedom. She was 14 years old when slavery ended in the island of Martinique, which is in the Caribbean, and she had children with that man Corcoran. And that man Corcoran was a slaver. I don't think she was enslaved by that man, but most likely it's someone that the man knew. That man and other slavers, they all know each other. Who knows whether they're related or not? I mean, there were a lot of relatives there, okay? But he decided to have children with her. He was married to a white lady. She died when the baby they had together was 2 years old. So she dies. Then he hooks up with my ancestor, my black ancestor. And then he had 10 children with that woman. 50 years after the birth of their firstborn, he marries her. Get that? He marries her. And that's what this paper is all about. Okay? That's what this section is all about. The registry of the marriage. Okay? So there's no Pocahontas fake history. These are the actual documents. I mean, a printed out of the original. Okay? So, I mean, I don't have children, but I have nieces and nephews, and they might want to know about their ancestry. I don't have to make up a story, a Pocahontas story. I can just show them their African history and their European history, and that they married. Now, isn't that like a Pocahontas story? You know, with Pocahontas, she takes the white colonials, and she's a tour guide for them. But you know, she had, I think she married one of the guys and had children with them. So if you could romanticize Pocahontas, why can't you romanticize this union? He at least married her. He married her. But I think what happened, see, they even though slavery ended and they got so-called citizenship, the stigma of slavery, it seems like it's really weird that in Catholic or Latin cultures, you know, men, you know, did their will with the women, but in the Anglo-Protestant culture, that's all hush hush, you know. But you know, maybe it was the laws, and 50 years later, I get the impression that okay, he didn't live that much longer after their marriage, to my understanding. What I speculate, again, is a speculation, that, see, if you're illegitimate, if your birth was not legitimate, you cannot inherit anything. So the kids are all adults now, 50 years later after the firstborn, and you had 10 kids together. He knew he was dying. He was in his 80s when he died, which was considered long for that time. And he marries her. So, and I think women weren't allowed property. So they had male children. And I think that they inherit the land. And the kids were just living around there. Yeah, you have different rules in different societies about ownership. Men were able to own, not women, okay? And that's what happened. So this is history. This is history. I could show it to my nieces and nephew if they want it, okay? Make a copy for them. And you learn from it. He at least marries her. There's some men today that don't marry their women. And they have all these illegitimate children. And their kids are just squandering. Okay? So I may not like the idea that he was a slave. That he was a slave. He and his ancestors arrived on the island in 1650 something. That's 1658. And they acquired a lot of land in Car Bay and St. Pierre, the northern part of Martinique. Yeah, and some of them were generals. They had clout. They probably did horrendous things to the indigenous population there. They were destroyed. And then the ones that didn't perish, they were pushed off the island. That's what happened there. Yeah. My ancestor, they were blacks and mulattoes. That's what they were. It's history. But if you could romanticize the union of an Indian and a white, you can also romanticize an African and a European. You know, what's the difference? So that's my story. And so, again, this video, again, is not to put down, is to awaken you and to take pride in your own history, own documented history. African American history is well documented. If you want to know, you can get that information. And again, here, little island of Martinique. It's free. It's on the internet. You don't have to pay for anything. You just go right in there, and it's available. They print out all the documents are scanned in. Shouldn't you, African American, demand that those documents be readily available for you, like what they did in the French islands? Documents, so you can get your information. I want to know what family that my ancestors would say. That's one thing I don't have. So it just has that she was released from slavery, but it doesn't say who the so-called owner was. It doesn't have that. But I would like to know. That I want to know. Yeah, I'm not ashamed. They should be ashamed. Okay? So yeah, each one teach one. Teach your kids your true history. And again, no matter what your race is, when you look in the mirror, love the reflection that you see. And if you don't like what you see, make it better. Okay? So I thank you, people, for listening to this long video. But I hope you like it. Okay? Thank you again, and peace and love to you guys. Okay? Bye-bye.